Hey everybody, hope this finds you doing well. This is Danelle here at Networkchain. Let's go ahead and get into it. It has been a fantastic week for Bitcoin and many other cryptocurrencies. And let's go ahead and jump right into the cryptocurrency market update. As you can see, Bitcoin is currently trading around that $117,000 to $118,000 range. We'll see if it'll continue to take a leg up going into this week, but we definitely had some all-time highs that were made multiple times over this past week as we went from about 109,000 to over 118,000. So we had over a $9,000 weekly candle over the past week. And right now we're seeing that momentum is continuing to grow. So there's a possibility that we could continue this leg up going into the next couple of weeks, as July is normally a pretty good month for Bitcoin and several other cryptocurrencies. As we can see, Ethereum is currently trading above 17% over the past 7 days, currently just under $3,000. So it looks like it's trying to break above that $2,500 mark that it had been kind of hovering around for a while now. So we'll see if it continues to move up as Bitcoin makes its move as well. XRP up nearly 25% over the past week, trying to get closer to that $3 range. Is currently trading at $2.76. Then you have Solana, BNB, Dogecoin up over 20%, nearing and very close to that 20 cents range. And then you see Cardano rounding out the top 10, and it's also done very well with a 25% move over the last 7 days. So if we look a little closer at the Bitcoin chart, we can see here that Bitcoin has made a nice move since it had been kind of consolidating over the last couple of months in that $100,000 to $110,000 range, and then it's now broke up above 110,000, and as I mentioned earlier, it's gone up to over 118,000. It almost touched 119 but didn't get quite there, so maybe we could see that over the next couple of weeks. But don't be surprised if at some point we start to see some accumulation. What we want to see is if it does make another nice move, let's say upward towards 120 or so, then we may see some consolidation back to this around 105 to $110,000 range to kind of test this area where it was resistance before. So usually when you look at the technicals, and I'm not very much a technical trader by any means, but definitely when we look at charts like this, the support and resistance are key levels to look at. So we're seeing that the resistance level was around that $110,000, $111,000 mark. And so we're going to see now that it's broken past that, whether it will come back down and test it as support. As you can see here, when we broke above $100,000 and broke above $90,000, it started to consolidate, and 90,000 was the support. It did have a breakdown in April when the tariffs became an issue, and that was a global economic issue, not universal to other assets as well. But you see Bitcoin was very resilient and then popped right back up over the last several months. So you never know when it comes to these markets. You always have to be mindful of what's going on in the macroeconomic environment, not only what's going on in the cryptocurrency market. So you definitely want to make sure that you're keeping an eye out on the news, of course staying tuned here to Networkchain and other outlets to make sure you have an idea of what's going on, because Bitcoin can make a massive move, whether it's either up or down at any time. And some of those swings can be extremely violent. As you can see, just over this past week, it had nearly a $10,000 candle, and that still could be in the realm of possibilities moving forward. But definitely things are looking quite nice for Bitcoin holders over the past week. As you can see here, shout out to River. You can see that the bull market still hasn't been driven by global money supply growth. Usually it is driven by more money being printed in being put into the market, because of the fact that we've talked about inflation being an issue globally. And as inflation continues to be a concern and an issue going into the end of the the second half of 2025 and going into 2026, we're seeing that Bitcoin in the past, in the last bull cycles, we saw that as money supply went up and increased, you also saw basically the change in Bitcoin also kind of moving along with the money supply. So once it went back down, you saw Bitcoin started to go back down. Once it went back up again, you can see that Bitcoin started going back up again. And we've talked about M2 supply in the past, but it includes all different types of money that is basically circulating in the economy. And when you're starting to see more money circulating in the economy, people are more willing to put money into risk on assets. Bitcoin is still considered a risk on asset. So you'll start to see more money start to flow into these more riskier assets, from Bitcoin to other stocks like tech stocks, for example. They move out of money market funds and things of that nature and get into assets that they believe will give them a better return, willing to take a little bit more risk. So we're seeing here that the M2 money supply still hasn't gotten back to the levels back in 2018 and back in 2021 or so. So we'll looking to see, and we'll continue to kind of check on what's going on with the M2 money supply, because if we do start to see that change in in the M2 supply, if we do start to see that start ranging upwards, then definitely we are more likely to see some more space up ahead when it comes to the Bitcoin price. Also, want to give a shout out to Eric Valentunas. He's a ETF analyst over at Bloomberg, and he shared this chart where the IBIT ETF, which is BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, it has broken records, but it continues to break amazing records. And after trading over 374 days, it has reached the $80 billion assets under management mark. And when you look at some of the other larger ETFs, VOO being one of the quickest at 1,814 days. And you can see that IBIT has obliterated that record. And it just goes to show the interest and the demand that is coming into this asset and how far it's come in such a short period of time. And we still will continue to see, most likely, more breaking of records, as we see that the ETF space is now being broadened out not only to Bitcoin but also to other assets. When we know now that there's a Solana ETF, XRP, there's other ETFs that are being filed and have been filed with the SEC, so we'll continue to keep you posted on that. But the digital asset cryptocurrency space continues to grow, and make sure that you get familiar with what's going on, because we do see that this burgeoning asset class is going to continue to get larger, and you have opportunities to invest in these type of assets that can really be life-changing type gains. So as we see here, and as a testament to what I'm saying, we see that Bitcoin, it has been in the top 10 for a while now, but you can see that it has already surpassed Meta, it has already surpassed Google, and it has surpassed silver, and now currently at the number 6 slot when you look at the assets globally ranked. And gold still holds on to the number 1 slot. A lot of people look at Bitcoin as digital gold. It's still 10x away from there, so we'll let you do the math to see what Bitcoin could potentially be trading at if it does actually reach the market cap of gold. Many people predict that this could happen in the next 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years potentially. But next up is Amazon, and of course there's a possibility that they can take a shot at Apple, and this is all a possibility even in 2025. So we have no idea. We don't know what the future holds, but we do see the trajectory, and we see what Bitcoin has done in the past. And given the past, we see that there definitely is a possibility that Bitcoin could continue to make several moves up in this list. So definitely stay tuned and continue to understand and learn about this very fascinating asset. And if we go to bitcointreasuries.net before we head out of here, and I'm going to go on a small quick rant before we get out, but we can see here when we look at the BTC that are in treasuries, you can see here, of course, MicroStrategy, by the time you watch this, they could potentially have more or have gotten to the $600,000 level. We already know that that's going to be happening in short order, because Michael Saylor, who is the founder and chairman of Strategy, he says that they will be buying the top of Bitcoin forever. So we'll see if he continues to hold on to his word. So far he has. If we look at the Bitcoin treasuries and the amount of Bitcoin in the ETFs, as well as public companies, private companies, and governments, we see that there are over 3.5 million, continues to grow. You can see it's gone up 2.43% over the past 30 days. The ETFs now have over 1 million. You can see 1.4 million BTC. And then when you look at the entities holding Bitcoin, when we look at the governments, private companies, exchanges, smart contracts, the ETFs, we can see that the number of entities continue to grow as well. It seems like almost every week we have several companies that are adding or have announced that they'll be adding or finding ways to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. So you can see here that over 25 entities have increased over the past 30 days. So one of the reasons why I was interested in Bitcoin is because I understood that there were restrictions to my money. When I put my money in a bank, when you put your money in a bank, we obviously are trusting a third party to custody those funds and to hold them and to keep them safe. But there's some restrictions that really don't make any sense, particularly when it comes to the fact that at the end of the day, those funds are yours. So you have the right to be able to access those funds at any time. But sometimes you aren't able to access those funds at any time. Sometimes there are restrictions or there's questions that are being asked as to why you are removing or withdrawing your funds, or there may be fees that are levied against your account if you don't have enough funds in a particular account. I actually ran into an issue recently where that happened to me, where I was getting dormancy fees because I hadn't been transacting in that particular account for over a year. And so if you don't make any transactions in that account, even though the money is just sitting there in the account, I was getting a monthly fee just for my money sitting there doing nothing. So these are the type of issues that you don't have to deal with if you choose to be a self-custodian of your assets, and Bitcoin allows you to do that. Now, is there absolutely a risk to doing that? Do you trust yourself? Do you trust what's going on around you and who's around you to be able to safekeep and safeguard those funds? That's only up to you to decide, but at least it gives you an option. And that's what I really appreciate about Bitcoin, is that it gives you options. It gives you optionality. And there's also many different ways that you can invest in Bitcoin. It's not just having self-custody. If you want to do that, you can do that. If you want to have and trust a third party like a BlackRock or Fidelity, who have been doing this for decades, you can trust them by buying the Bitcoin ETFs, and you can change it, trade it whenever you want. You know, you can have your Bitcoin on an exchange if you want to do that. We don't recommend doing any of these things. You obviously need to do your own research and decide what's best for you. But we just believe that it's important to understand that there are options, and it makes sense to explore them if this is something that you're interested in. It's going to take time. This is something that I've been looking into and learning about for several years now. I'm continuing to learn more about this space. So it's a constant learning curve, but it is fascinating to understand the opportunities that are out there with this new asset class. So we're going to continue to keep you posted with what we learn and pass it along to you. We thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Of course, we're on X and IG. You can reach out to us there. And of course, here on YouTube every week. We look forward to linking up with you soon on the Networkchain. In the meantime, take care. Bye-bye.